and take some time to work out. All of the schedules we looked at, except staying the same, reduced the amount of time that students would be with teachers. Anywhere from, you would get 90% of the time that we have now with teachers, as low as 75% of the time with teachers. Okay? So then the winter of 2017-18 came on. We provided some information to staff on differences of our current schedule and our block schedule. Okay, that dealt with credits, choice credits that students could take, what a schedule might look like, those types of things. Spring of 2018, we visited Granite Bay High School with about 15 staff representatives. And the reason we went there, this is the last time, is because we had similar demographics to what Rio has. Okay? It was decided at that point, in the spring of the year, that we had recommendations from our WASC accreditation process that whenever we were considering a change that was going to affect the student population, the community, that we needed to have time for the community and students to be able to voice what their concerns or positive natures were around the topic. So that's the reason we set up these 3 meetings that we're having this fall. Okay. At the end of those 3 meetings, and the last one is scheduled for the end of November, I think it's in November 28th, there will be 2 different surveys set up, one for parents, one for students. Basically what you're going to get is do you think this is something we should do moving forward with changing the schedule, or not? If you answer yes or no to that question, we will get a draft that we can give to the teachers. You will also, in that survey, be able to put in any written comments that you would like. All that information will be separated from parents, students, and we will give that information to the teachers. They will all get a copy of it so they can see what input you as students and or parents have around the topic. Okay? Yes? Yes. So what we're doing as far as that goes, and I know last time some folks asked, what are we doing to make sure that our middle school feeder programs understand that we're looking at this. So we have our incoming 9th grade or new student night 2 weeks from now, where families come. What we're doing is we are going to be giving some information out that night, letting folks know about that last meeting that we're going to have, and giving them that. I'll have the websites or the surveys ready at that point as far as students and parents. We're going to give them that information that night, and then we will open the surveys after that last meeting. So everybody has a chance to come and share whatever their concerns or positives are about this. Yes?
So you said you were Granite Bay is the same demographic.
Demographic.
Are they running a 4x4 program? What are they doing?
Yes, they have a 4x4 block.
You said by when you
So I will in a minute. Let me go through the things that I want to go through. I mean, last time we got into questions, and we will do that again tonight. I just want to get through some of these preliminary things that I have. Okay, so again, November is when students and parents will be able to give their feedback online, so it's in written form. I have gotten a lot of emails from parents, students even. I have a separate file that I have that set aside. In my email box, there's a file I have for scheduled discussion topics. So those emails will get printed out and shared with teachers as well. January of 2018, at this point, is when we're planning on voting from the teacher's standpoint, if this is something they want to move forward with or not. Now, for this to move forward, we need to have 2/3 of our teaching staff, which includes the counselors, which includes our counselors in there, librarians as well. 2/3 of that number has to say, yes, we want to move forward for us to move forward. If they do not want to, we will not move forward with any changes for next year. Okay? So that's just the timeline of things that have happened and what we've done. Before I get into describing, for those of you who want to know what a 4x4 block is, just new graduation requirements. The basic changes for the graduation requirements are right now, students with our schedule that we have take 220 credits in various different amounts of credits for subject areas to graduate. Okay. We have 70 credits of electives from that 220 credits. Okay. The new graduation requirements add 2 years of a world language for everybody who comes through the school, 1 more year of science, which makes 3 years of science, and 1 more year of math, which makes 3 years of math. By virtue of that, the number of electives, with the schedule staying the same and the 220 credits staying the same, would go from 70 credits to 30 credits. Okay. Now, students can get elective credits in different ways if they're taking certain AP classes that count for the requirements that they have. So that number can be somewhat fluid. Okay. If we were, and the difference would be, if we would change to a 4x4 block, the graduation credits increase to 280 credits. In that scenario, with the graduation requirements remaining the same, there are more elective credits at that point, 90, that a student would be able to take, okay, versus the 30. Now, as I said last time when I was here, the reason we're looking at doing any type of change is because of the increase in graduation requirements and also wanting to be able to offer a wide variety and a good broad breadth of programs. There is a feeling with the number of credits that we would be reducing students taking as electives that some of our elective programs could possibly dwindle away and not be here, which does not have us offering a breadth of a program that we might want to have. Now, that's kind of the big picture of where we're at and why we're looking to gather information from families, from students. What question we had up here was, what is a 4x4 block? How many of you in here don't know what that is? Okay, so let me take some time. Our schedule right now, I wouldn't call it a traditional schedule, it's kind of a blended schedule. We have 6 periods in any given day, and we also have what is called 0 period before the actual school day starts. That 0 period is used for, generally speaking, students who are in different types of programs that may have trouble getting all their credits in. Can take 0 period so that they can get all the credits in that they want and take those extra programs that they want. Sometimes it's for students in Civitas, AVID students, band students definitely are in that category. Okay? So we have 6 periods in our schedule all year long. So if you take Math 1, you have Math 1 all year long. Okay? There are some classes, very few, that meet half a year. Health will be one of them. Anyway, so it's all your classes that you have, and they're going to generally meet all year long. And the students take 6 classes. In the 4x4 block, students have 4 classes per semester. And when I say semester, I'm talking about from the beginning of school till winter break would be a semester. And if you had Math 1, we'll say as an example, you would take Math 1 from the beginning of school until that break time came in winter. Those 4 classes that you had in that first half of the year, you would be done with. You'd be finished with them. You would get your credits for them at that point. The next semester of the year, which would be from after winter break through May or June, whenever we would get out, you would have 4 different classes. And then you would get your credits for those when you were done with that semester. Difference being, You have classes all year versus having classes for a semester. So recently I've heard a few numbers, and I want to try to clarify what those numbers are. And by all means, I'm not saying, I want you to understand that I do realize the numbers I'm giving you are numbers that I'm giving you based on schedules that I've created fictitiously, in other words. I've created them just based on the time we have in school, not looking at other programs or things that we might put in. So right now, we have 6 periods in a day. Our periods on a normal day, and we'll use a normal day, which is a Monday and a Friday, generally speaking, or Mondays and Fridays, okay? We meet all 6 periods. We have classes that last 60 minutes, and we have classes that last 59 minutes, okay? If you multiply that out with the number of minutes in the traditional schedule that we have now, I believe the 60 times the 180 comes out to 10,800 minutes, something of that nature, okay? I know I did it a few days ago, but I don't want to pull my calculator out and have it in front of you. Somebody can do it if they want to. The block schedule, what we have, and for purposes of easy math, schedule I created was either 91 or 92-minute periods. Let's just use 90-minute periods as an example. 90-minute periods for 90 days is 8,100 minutes. When you do that math, that is 75% of the time that teachers normally have with students. So yes, there is less time, teaching time, for the teachers for that block schedule. What you give up in teaching time, students gain in the number of classes they take. In this traditional schedule, most students, mind you, I realize I'm not talking about every student, most students take 6 classes. Some students on our campus will take 7 classes if they take the 0 period. Block schedule-wise, a student would take 8 classes. Have more opportunity to take different types of electives if they so chose. Okay. If a student, and if we were to run a block schedule, you would also have the opportunity for students to take a 0 period as well, if they needed to, if they wanted to.
You're speaking about the 4x4.
Yes, I am. That would mean students could take, if you're a senior, you could take as few as 6 classes, because there is the open period that we do have for seniors if they're on track and meeting their credits, up to 9 classes if you so chose, as an underclass. So those are the basic differences. Okay. And talk to you about the graduation requirements changing. Does anybody have questions about those? Yes.
I'm just wondering why it says that it matches the A through G requirements,
It doesn't. I don't know why it does that either. That was a
because there's 1 more year of lab science required more than A through G requirements. A through G only requires 2 years of lab science, and that says 3.
so. And then there's a few other little things that are different as well. Even in the math, students could take integrated math 1, math modeling, and integrated math 2, and meet the requirements. That doesn't necessarily meet UC requirements either. And when you say it says that exactly on there, this is a district paper, so I have to look exactly where it's at.
Second line requirements match A through G.
Second line and that.
Okay, now graduation requirements match. Yeah, that shouldn't say that, because they don't exactly match A through G requirements.
Yeah.
They have raised them, but they do not exactly match.
I feel like it would make it a lot harder for students to graduate, because here at Rio, we only offer 3 science classes that aren't AP.
That's
So students would have to take at least all of those to graduate.
and that's something that is also will be changing in the future. There are discussions right now based on the standards for science, and district is looking at how it may impact the science courses. So there's a possibility of looking at a 3-course model for science versus a 4-course model for science to get all the standards in. And that's a discussion that will be happening in the district shortly. Okay, but those are some. valid points that it shouldn't say it matches it, because they do not match them exactly. Yes?
So the 4x4, how long will a student sit in a class at one period?
A class would be about 90 minutes long.
Is the school day the same length?
The length of school day is the same, yes. And just to give you an example, looking at a 7-period day as well, that's another one that's been talked about, but for various reasons about the number of preps that teachers would want versus the district required, that's not something that anybody really settled on. That, you would go from 60 minutes a period down to approximately 50 minutes a period. And that's about an 85% difference in the amount of time that teachers would have with students. Okay?
So would the block schedule be Monday through Friday or just Tuesday through Thursday?
No, if we went to a 4x4, and that was our schedule, it would be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Thursday would be a shortened day like it normally is, and you just have shortened blocks on that day, and then Friday would be a block day. Yes.
Would 0 period be 90?
That would still be an hour. A 0 period would still be an hour. Yeah.
I have a question about the calendar, the
Yes.
one that was recently adopted. Recently. So with the number of days in semester one, we're term 1 versus term 2, because term 1 there's 82 days in the school year, and then next year spring, but just like this year too, next year we'll have 98 days in the spring. So what's the plan to address the?
So, there, and you're 100% right. The difference there is because of the testing schedules that we generally do in the spring. We have AP testings, we have task testings. Those take out days of instruction for students. That's why the time is built in to the second semester. But that certainly is a question that would need to be answered about what, when you take out the testing days that we do, how do those numbers match up? Yeah. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I don't want to miss anybody else over there. I thought, yes, sir. I'll come in the middle.
You mentioned that if we go to the block schedule, 4 classes, 90 minutes each, how do we get 8 classes? How do we get 8?
Because those 4 classes are only half the year, then you have 4 new classes the second half of the year.
But you're doing a year's worth of material in that semester.
Correct.
In less time.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
To get 5 credits.
Rob, where are you at?
No.
64,800 or 68,400 for the total number of minutes.
Memorized. It's, yeah, I can go look at it.
So
Yeah, it's right on
I
that.
always get
thread.
those transposed, but
Yeah.
yes, there is a minimum number of minutes that we must meet. I want to say it's 64,800, but
Yeah.
but yes,
That's
there is a
passing
minimum.
periods and, not counting passing periods,
Yeah,
not lunch, it's instructional minutes.
Right, and for a particular, for 5 units worth. So if you're gonna get 5 units of English, is there a particular number of hours that class needs to meet
No, we have to meet a certain number of minutes
throughout the whole
throughout
year?
Yeah.
the whole year.
Of
Of
instructional.
our instructional time.
Yeah.
Yes.
I have a few questions.
Sure. I'll come to you guys later and say that.
I'm just curious for classes, what I'm thinking about are classes where there's a continuum. So like foreign language or math. Let's say that you took a year's worth of foreign language in the first semester, and then you didn't take foreign language the second semester, and then in the fall of the next year, you're taking the next level of foreign language, but there has been this time that's been missing. So I'm thinking that would be with foreign language, it would be with math, and then additionally, kind of related to but different, would be AP classes. If you're taking AP classes in the fall, and then you don't get to see that material or even think about it until, well, ever again, and then you are tested on it in May, that's a concern as well. And then my last concern, just off the top of my head, is I'm thinking about early dismissals. So, if it's if the class is, instead of missing, 1 period, are you really missing like 2 when you're released early to go to, a football game or whatever, whatever your reason is to leave early. And my thoughts are, I'd be really curious to hear from the teachers of those subjects, So that's my question.
So let me answer this first, and we do have some teachers here that might want to chime in. All right, so go back to your first
Sorry,
question.
okay, so I see I'm sequencing, constantly.
Okay, thank you. So I want to be mindful of how I answer the question. All of you know my bias in the sense that I like the block. Okay, so let's get that out of the way. Secondly, there are ways, and I've worked at 2 schools with block schedules. Generally speaking, in both those situations, students' schedules are flexible for them to design their schedule so that those types of things don't have to happen, although they can. I'm not going to lie and say they don't happen. Students have the ability, if they want to take Math 1 and Math 2 in the same year, if they want to accelerate. They have chances to do those things if they want to and take their electives at a different time. Not saying that all kids do that, but that can be a way that happens. World language, same thing. You could take French 1, French 2 in the same year if you so chose. If you didn't want to do it your freshman year and you wanted to do it your sophomore, you could do it that way. There's a flexibility in schedule to be able to do that. Now, that does not answer the question that you have about length of time that the kids have to learn the material. Okay? But they do have that ability to work in the continuity with their class and their parents how they want to. There have been students at other schools. I know when I was back east, we had students who took higher levels of language and they talked about culture and literature in that particular area. You have students who have taken 2 different languages because they're able to fit that in, and those are their electives. So there's positives, there's negatives. There are some kids who are going to take math their freshman year first, and they don't want to take it because they don't like it. And they're going to wait till later. That doesn't necessarily help them. You're absolutely right. Okay, second question.
I think the AP kind of would then be, what's the...
So again, speaking only from experience, don't know what if this were to happen exactly how we handle here. We have talked about it as a staff. In other schools that I've been at, where you've had block schedules, I had the ability in the other schools I've had to give those teachers who teach those classes the choice of what the length of that class is going to be. A half a year, 3/4 of a year, or the full year. You can do that. Does that wreak a little bit of havoc in your schedule? It does, but there's still. Now, if you went and took the class for just half a year, which is when I gave the choice out to teachers in other schools I've been at, so you have the choice. I only had one teacher go 3/4 of a year, and I think there was one teacher that went the entire year. The others went half the year. So that half-year model was what they would do is the first half of the year you have your class. The second half of the year we had what was a flex period within the schedule, where certain days of the week the students from those AP classes would go back to those teachers to make sure they were still on point with the material and were doing study skills for those tests. So you would build those types of things into the schedule. Now, that is another little wrench that can be thrown into the schedule, but those are things that are done to alleviate those particular concerns. Now, Pennsylvania, California, 2 different states. There are different rules about attendance and those types of things. So having students or having a class for 3/4 of a year versus a half a year, those are things that I'd have to look a little deeper at. That's how, again, we handle it in a different state that way, and it worked fine for those particular situations. Wouldn't say that it could work always that way here. And then your last question, I have a few teachers that maybe want to chime in, probably with differing opinions. So those of you that are here teacher-wise, Mr. Valencius, Mr. Worley, Mr. Beerson, Mr. Murray, and Mr. Keegan was here, right? Okay. Oh, you're up top. Okay. If anybody else is here, let me know. I don't see anybody else. Okay. So why don't each of you take a minute or two just to address how do you handle end of the day dismissals? How would you as a teacher handle that? Mr. Beerson, why don't you start?
Okay, so I'll just say that my bias is very much in favor of the block. I like the block, and I've taught in the block And it was just an overwhelmingly positive experience for kids, especially kids who only they only had 4 classes to focus on instead of 6 at a time. That was just made a big difference for a lot of kids. To your question, one thing I wanted to answer first was for AP classes, because when we had AP classes, this was in Los Angeles, because of the extra space, elective space that we had, we were able to assign elective space to things like workshops or study skills classes, so that if you had an AP class in the fall, you could actually just take one of those electives, because you have extra electives now, and apply that to, and make that an AP study hall, for example, and gather a bunch of people together, and you would have that time. Now I was in Los Angeles, and I'm not sure if the same thing is available here, or if that's what they do at Del Campo or Casa or wherever, but it seemed like it was a good thing. As far as letting kids out early, you're saying that what you're suggesting is that because they would be missing one period of classes, it would be kind of like missing 2 periods? And I agree with that, but then the other side of that is that instead of missing 2 classes, they would only be missing 1 class, because it's a 90-minute class, right? So if, like I have a lot of kids who leave 5th period, 1 o'clock, 1:30, maybe they miss my 5th period, and then they miss their 6th period. Now it's more likely that they would only be missing 1 of their classes. Yes, it would count for more, but it's kind of like I'm not sure that it's.
I'll just add
pencils
on to
out
that.
exactly the same.
I know my thought on that is this. It's along these lines. You're missing the same number of minutes. You may be missing only 1 class. To me, I look at that as you have less classes. You may only be missing work for one of those classes that may be less stress for you in the sense that there's only 1 class I've missed work for. I know what I have to do for everything else. I don't look at that. Again, the situation I was in was a little different. Kids went from 8-period day to a 4x4 block. Okay, so folks would say, hey, if you miss 1 day of school because you're absent, you're missing twice as much work. Not really, because you have half the amount of classes. If you do the math, it's the same amount of work. You just have 2 core classes. And when we set the classes up so that kids had 2 core subjects in the fall and 2 core subjects in the spring, unless they were the ones making those decisions about doing 2 math classes and things of that nature. So, again, that's one side of the coin. Let me go. Any other teachers that want to chime in on how you handle leaving early?
Miss a lot.
Go.
I just miss a lot.
Does that answer all those questions that you have?
It's not just
Yeah.
leaving early, it's being sick or something like that.
Correct. Yeah, leaving early, being sick, absolutely. All those things play into it.
So
But
are students not understanding how do you mitigate for the disruption with the AP classes? I mean, if the answer is AP study hall because a kid has a free period,
Now,
kids
Miss,
who take AP class,
so let's
they
just
don't have free periods.
let's clarify. So what we're talking about is when I explain to you a 4x4 block, that's a straight 4x4 block where you have 4 periods, 1 semester, 4 periods the next semester. Most schedules nowadays with block have what is included in them is a flex period. So instead of your classes being 90 minutes, okay, your classes are 85 minutes long, okay? Then you take a flex period in the student's schedule that can be used for interventions or acceleration for whatever period of the week you're in, okay? So students take their AP class the first half of the year, and let's say it's AP English. Second half of the year during that flex time, they go back to that teacher to continue on making sure that they are up to speed, remembering information. It's like it's another little scenario. And what we did in the other situations was we designated, we had 4 periods, so we had a 1 through 4 cycle. So if it was a day 1, that was your priority period. So if it was your day 1 was your English class that you had the previous semester, you go back to that teacher to make sure you're doing what you need to do. If you had more than 1 AP class, it worked because you cycled through those. Now,
The teacher has that flex period also.
they do. Yes,
So
that's,
they're teaching half a year and
year they're not in that.
The flex period is not a schedule for the teacher. Okay, it's not a scheduled class.
Can't teachers just leave during that then?
No. So folks, so what you have, and I know it may be difficult to understand, is what you have is it's an intervention period. Okay? It's an intervention period that can be anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes long. You cycle through your periods so that students go back to the teacher and are able to review material or get extra help that they need in that time frame. It's something that you build into that schedule.
So teachers are gonna leave that period of time just for the AP students, or that's for any student who's having a problem?
Any student who's
Right,
having
so
a
it
problem.
still doesn't really answer the question of an AP student that might have.
We set up the specific periods for the AP students.
And what do the rest of the kids do? Do they have a schedule or do they just?
Those students will be they'll be going to their intervention period as well.
Is there somewhere they go or do they just have 45 minutes where they just?
No, they go to a classroom with a teacher. They are with a teacher that they have, looking for either extra makeup work that they might need to do, help with homework, makeup quizzes, tests, or those students can have enrichment.
So is that five different places they go rather than 4?
So let's try to do one thing at a time, okay? It would be 4 periods of instruction and 1 flex period, which is a period where students can go to get help for their other classes, or enrichment for their other classes, mediation, makeup tests. It's not an extra class that they have to go to and they're going to get new material or test it. It's for makeup or enrichment purposes.
But do they have to go somewhere?
Yes.
So they would have, so it's a short period, right? 20 minutes?
Well, it can be 30 to 45 minutes, generally
Do
speaking.
they sign in first, or they have to go and then go to the AP teacher?
Let me see if I can try to make this clear. You have 4 periods in the day, and it's a day 1. Okay? This is how I did it at the school I was at before. You have 4 periods in the day, it's day 1. So you go through your 4 periods at the end of the day, beginning of the day, middle of the day, wherever it's chosen to be put. The students go back to that period 1 class, and they, at that point, can get help with homework, they can do mediation, they can make a test, there's no new instruction at that time. Day 2, second period is the priority. They can go to get help from that particular teacher. Second, they go back to that second period class at the end of the day, middle of the day, beginning of the day, wherever it's put. That's how you run through your schedule.
So potentially,
For the flex period, yes.
So potentially if Matt has 120 students through that day, all 120 students could show up in that 30-minute period
No.
to see him.
No. You go, on day 1, you go to your period 1 class again at that flex period. So he has 25, 30 kids in that period 1. At the end of the day, we go back to that period 1 class for the intervention. He has those kids coming to
But they would be actually the semester before period 1. Because
No.
you
Yeah. For AP,
And it seems like you have a really solid proposal, and we're not getting it. So for men to like, because honestly,
But here's what I'm going to say. So I don't want to
sorry, just let me just finish. We're not getting, there's like pieces of this that are kind of dribbling out, and I feel like.
And I don't want to get bogged down in going through that particular type of schedule. I'm not here to defend a block schedule and saying, well, you're asking us questions. What I'm bringing to everybody is, when we went through a process with our teachers, we landed on staying the same or going to block schedule. Okay? And these are the reasons we're having these meetings, is to hear what you would like us to do.
Offering, I think that's what he's saying, is that you're not providing clear information on what you want to change regarding, like if the AP kid has it first semester and they want to go back second semester, continue support, how does that work then with all the new kids that now have their teacher to rotate around 1 day, 2 days, 3 days? If I have a kid who's AP Spanish first semester, and now it's now February, and I'm stressed because the kid wants to go whatever. So how do they go back to their Spanish teacher from first semester?
Those days are designated for the second semester for that teacher when they're going to meet with those AP classes that they had the
From
first
the
semester.
first semester.
They are designated that this is when those students show up for that particular time.
And
Okay.
how often is that going to be?
That can be 1 day a week, it can be 2 days a week, it could be what we set up. Now, because you have teachers, you have other teachers in the systems, you work with those, and what do we have this year? 26 sections of AP courses. You work with those 26 sections in your master schedule to schedule them the second half of the year of when those students would meet for the purpose of making sure they were kept up to speed, still studying, answering questions that they, or asking questions from the teacher, getting help. You schedule that into your second semester. Now, if you have a teacher who has the AP course in the second semester, okay, they fit right into that normal cycle that you're talking about of, if it's, I have an AP second period, I'm going to go second period to my teacher to get the extra time for the time that we need for our AP course. So you build that into that picture in the second semester. Yes?
Okay, I have a couple of things.
Sure.
One is, I'm really concerned about the survey because we have parents who are here, we're engaged, we're learning about this information so we can make an informed decision on a survey that's going to go out to the whole school, to a lot of parents who aren't going to have this information, who aren't going to, and I feel that, I mean, I think what we're bringing to the table should be weighted in terms of how that feedback gets to the teachers. Because we're asking questions, we're the ones here who are very concerned. I obviously do not think a block schedule is the way to go.
Okay.
I did some research today, did a lot of research on our lunch hours. There's test scores that are posted right now, and you can look them up for the district. And the schools that are performing the highest are the traditional programs. El Camino, Rio, Mira Loma, and Bella Vista. Mira Loma was presented with a block schedule a few years ago, and the parents absolutely voted it down for many of the reasons that we're raising here tonight. So the schools that have the block schedules are not performing well, based on both AP scores, AP also graduation, their math scores, and their English scores. They're even below the district standard. Rio, we're above that. We're actually college prep. So I have real concerns that we want to move to a schedule that isn't supporting what seems to be the academics that the school's already performing at. So that's just kind of probably the information if anyone's interested. Also, concern, as you know, about the impact that a 4x4 has on the arts programs.
Yeah.
They do decimate. I've got literature here that shows a 68% drop in band in 4 states that went to a statewide block program. Some of those programs no longer exist. So it is real. It's not oh, you're too worried about it. No, it's a reality. There are numbers behind it. I've got reports from Boston University behind this. So this is a significant concern, I think, for a lot of folks. And I do think a survey, although I understand that, trying to get as much feedback as possible from the Rio community, without having all of this detailed information, what's the survey going to say? Do you think block's good or not? I saw last night the district board asked a senior about it, and she didn't have a lot of information. She just said, I think it might be a good idea. Does she have the information that we have right now about the impact? So, anyways, that's
So let me address real quick, and I talked with Mr. Murray about this just a few minutes before we start. So one of the things that I know a lot of folks were concerned about with the band program was the amount of time, how it was set up, how would you work situations out with half a year and students not performing. So there is the ability within the schedule to have the classes that band teaches to go the entire year. So instead of having the amount of time you have now, you have 1.5 times the amount. Now, there's a caveat to that, okay? Right now, between the 2 teachers, and they're full-time teachers, they have, what did you say it was, 8 different sections of band? I'm trying to remember the number of these calls. Okay, and I'll go back over these numbers in a second, but with the block, those teachers would be teaching 6 classes over there. That could be 12 sections that could be half. Now, but if they're teaching all year, that goes down to 6. So there are 2 sections of band classes that could possibly not be around. One of those would be looking at the piano before anything else, because that is an elective.
But that's
Okay.
that's the extra two that brings us up to 10.
True.
So the 8 are.
True. And then you also have to look at what other courses would possibly go up. So there is a difference if you do run it all year long, that the teachers are going to be, not going to be teaching 12 sections. They would be teaching actually 6 sections between the 3 of them. So,
But you'd also have to run other classes probably all year long in that same time period, and that those end up being the AP courses.
you wouldn't have to.
But then you have kids.
But you
What kind of minutes are you talking about in these, if you're breaking apart one block to create 2 classes, you're talking about a 45-minute class?
I'm not talking about breaking apart any.
Because you got jazz and you've got concert. So those are different classes, and most of the band kids are taking jazz and concert.
Right.
And
They
they're
could
not-
take 2 of those
and they-
all year long.
But could they also, because that's gonna take a huge amount out of the other classes that they need to take.
Well, let me just,
Instead of being 2.
instead of speaking it to you, I will show you a graphic of this. Okay.
Because a lot of your band kids are also your AP kids and your.
That is correct. All right.
Right.
Okay. Do you need me to make that a little bigger?
Yes.
Okay.
We got old eyes. We're kids.
Okay. So, look at 9th grade first. This is a student with 2 band courses, what their schedule might look like in a block schedule. Okay, you got a 0 period that they can take to do their PE. There's concert band A, concert band B, jazz band A, jazz band B, IM1, English 9, French and Spanish, and your science class.
Okay, so then they're getting into exactly the problem. They can't take 2 maths, they can't take language both times, or they're missing science and English. You know, so you
What,
can't.
they're not missing science and English?
No, but they're gonna take 1 semester of math and then no math the second semester, so they're gonna backslide on their math. Their French or Spanish, same thing. They're gonna take 1 semester, then the next time around, they're gonna, I mean, it's not gonna be a very conducive schedule.
So if you, but let's look through the whole schedule, okay? Students, as I said, could take that schedule and say, I'm gonna do my foreign language next year, okay? As you get down here, okay, and you get to, and you get lower on, students have some other choices they can make. And Mr. Murray, correct me if I'm wrong, please. The students who do 2 bands, 50 or 60 students was what you said, correct?
About 75 or 80.
70, okay. So that's the number of students who would be in a situation where they're taking 2 bands, okay? The other students have 1 band still have open slots. Again, this is just an example of what a schedule could look like. Doesn't mean it has to look exactly like that. Would they end up with the credits they need for graduation? Yes, they would.
No, I mean, I don't understand, you're saying it's only 50 or 60 kids who have that problem, but for those 50 or 60 kids, isn't it going to be a problem?
Right, so, and I know I'm speaking largely to a lot of folks in here, a lot of folks, not everybody, who have students who are in the band. Okay, we have issues in other areas with other students as well that might not be able to possibly get things or have to make up courses that are as problematic as well. So we have to look at the big picture of what we're trying to deal with. I understand that. I understand that.
And for college prep.
I understand that.
And the continuity of mathematics is really important. Math is some subjects to get people into college. And if we have an interruption, we actually the next year have to drop back and reteach because we lost that content.
And again, I definitely hear the fact that you have a concern with continuity. I understand that completely. Again, I would just say there are ways within the schedule and the flexibility that you could mitigate that. I'm not saying every student will
The
choose
other
that.
big issue is around the 90 minutes. Concentration really drops off after about 50 minutes. Even at the university level, it's 50 minutes and a 10-minute block to your next class. That keeps the brain fresh and learning. When you go 90 minutes, kids are going to be falling asleep and the concentration really drops off. You're not going to get the content in there. And I think you have to look at the evidence. What she was saying there, that's the evidence showing what actually happens with the learning, not the credits, but the learning is what we're looking for.
Well, especially time for them to learn the same information, and there's a different idea. And you have a kid right now who's already struggling to keep up.
Yes.
The kids who are struggling are gonna have even more trouble. So now we're kind of facing it with kids who are really doing well, they can do well at Rio, but kids who struggle, they're gonna be out.
But we do have students who struggle in the schedule we have now as
That's what
well.
I'm saying. So what happens when they put like, there's no way, they're gonna be even worse.
I understand your point, but again, as you look at the breadth of research, achievement levels of students, and I've never once, do I want anybody to think that I am doing this or looking at this particular schedule because I think achievement is going to change. I'm not trying to address achievement with a schedule change. What we're looking at is, can we give students the ability to have the classes that they want and the diversity of program that we have? That's what it's mostly about. It's not about the achievement. Because the achievement level, if you look at the breadth of data over block schools, the achievement levels stay the same.
But they don't. That's
Well,
Go back to the.
I don't want to get into back and forth about evidence, but if you look at a breadth of evidence, if you look at a breadth of evidence over block schedules, achievement generally stays the same.
I would love to look at those papers that you are referencing, because I have a really hard time finding anything that would support this. I could see where it might mitigate some issues that with some students, but I'm having a really hard time seeing how it might make my students' life easier or better, and a lot of other students that are similar to my students. Really hard time seeing how this is going to be effective.
Can you post that research that you're referring so we can read it?
So what I will do is if you would want, and I'm not sure how many of you want me to post different schedules, comparisons, these types of schedules.